Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, frequent flyers. Today in the lounge, I have the esteemed guest, Anthony Meyers. We are talking about success being a choice every day. And the fact is that we have the responsibility of making that choice. Zig Ziglar said, your attitude, not your aptitude, determines your altitude. So if you want to really fly high and go after your dreams, we're going to talk about success versus fulfillment, what the Red Tail Cadet Program does for inspiring students to join aviation as their career, and how we should actually seek out challenges to make a positive impact on the world and to simply make life happen.
Yeah.
Anthony, I'm really excited to have you with me today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm really going to enjoy this.
Yeah, no, we've been already going back and forth a little bit before we came on the show, and I've already taken so many notes. So everyone who's watching, make sure you come back and listen with a notepad because I think you're going to be having a lot of nuggets of wisdom from today's conversation. So Anthony, you said success is a choice in your show notes for me when we were prepping. Can you talk me through a little bit about how you came to realize that and the power it's had in your life?
I was always chasing success, this monster of success. And it's like, feed me, Seymour. You got to keep feeding this beast.
Yeah.
And then when you catch the beast, has this voracious appetite. It wasn't fulfilling. It wasn't joyful. And I had to keep on grinding. And what I thought success was somebody else's success. And
Yeah.
what the world says monetarily, you have these things, you're invited to these things, you're on these boards. Well, you must be a success. And people look at you and it's like, wow, he's successful.
Right.
And I got there and I'm like, well, I don't feel successful. If this is what it is, I'm not sure this is what I signed up for. I'm working too hard. I'm not happy in the work that I'm doing. I'm
Yeah.
not always happy with the people around me. My circles are sometimes too big, and having people around me that aren't good for me. And it's like, you know what? I need to redefine what success is and
Yes.
realize, no, I want fulfillment. I want to
Mm.
understand if I was created to do something, I want to do it. That's success. If I'm doing something and it's pouring into me, that is success. And
Mhm.
so I've changed my definition of what success is, how I seek it, what brings me fulfillment in it.
I love that. And you talked a little bit before we went live about the feeling, right? Because we chase these external validations and approvals, and it doesn't give us the feeling that we're seeking. But so often we don't actually know what that feeling is. So how did you uncover what the feeling was that you were actually after?
Let me flip it the other way around. I knew what I didn't want. So I had a mentor when I lived in Raleigh, North Carolina. I went to his office one day, and it was so funny. At the latter stages of his life, he lived on his top floor of a hotel and walked down there, and all the way down the hallway were all his plaques and awards.
Yeah.
In his office, from floor to ceiling, are plaques and awards. But at the end of his life, he was alone.
Mm,
Family wasn't around. There were no friends around. There were people that gave him accolades,
right.
but there was no one in his life. And I knew I didn't want that.
Yeah.
I knew what I didn't want to end up being, because all those plaques, I'm sure at this point right now, they're in somebody's box somewhere.
Right.
And so I didn't want that. I wanted to be purposeful. And so, I found out that, one of my focuses is helping people achieve their goals.
Mm,
And that means it's not about me. When I learned it wasn't about me, that triggered success. That triggered taking all the attention off of me and putting it on others. That's where I found fulfillment. Because at that point, it had nothing to do with me. That people are going to be put in my presence, and I get to pour into them. I get to
mm,
use all these tools and all this information that I have, and I get to pour that out. That was success to me. And I realized, oh wow, one, I'm good at this. I think I'm called to do this. And I'm that's where I find joy in doing that. And granted,
mm.
I could do some other things that make more money, that give me more accolades, that give me more attaboards or plaques or whatever. Those are empty to me. They really, really are. And so I want to spend time around people who are trying to make life better for other human beings. And we do that. I think that is fulfillment. That is success.
Beautiful. And I can see how you're lighting up as you're speaking about this. And
Yeah.
that's another thing, right? Is yes, you can earn more money and you can do these things. And very often it's soul sucking, right? The rat race is an empty chase.
Yes.
And then, to your point, I had a very dear friend pass away last year, and it was quite sudden. And the hospital was overwhelmed with how many people came to pay their respects and say goodbye
Yeah.
before he came off life support. And I remember thinking, this is what I would want when it's my time, that there are all of these people that I've made an impact on, whether they were my relatives or my friends or clients or colleagues, anyone. People had traveled across the country to say goodbye to this man who had touched them in some way
Right.
and really made a difference in their life. And I thought, this is the best feeling
Right.
rather than being alone, as you said, with, I mean, okay, those awards are going to go in a box, they're going to rot.
Yeah.
They don't last, they don't mean anything.
Right. I think because in that is legacy. What are we leaving behind?
Right.
If we've had great relationships, you leave that behind. That's joy, that's laughter, that's wisdom, that little nuggets here and there.
Yeah.
And there is legacy in that because it keeps going on. And
Yeah.
so I think that's why you want to have experiences with people, live
Mhm.
life well with people, because that's what you want to leave behind. That is true success. Because when you're gone, if people are starting to do some of the same things you did to enhance others' lives, that's success.
Yeah.
It outlives you.
I love that. Live life well with people,
Yes.
because that's what life is about. We are meant to connect, whether we want to admit it or not. We are herd creatures. We are
Mhm.
meant to be social and in
Yeah.
community. We're not designed to do everything on our own.
Right.
And redefining that takes time. So how could you encourage people? A lot of us know what we don't want
Yeah.
anymore. But what are some steps that people could take to start to figure out what they do enjoy?
I think you have to put a handle on your time first. They're
Mm,
1,440 minutes of every day, no more or less. That's all we get.
yeah.
And you get to determine what you do with them. Whether you work a place or not, you get to determine what you do with them. And you have to focus on that. So what becomes profitable time that you spend during a day? Is it with people? Is it on projects? And this whole work-life balance is a myth. There is life in which I might work some. So how
Yeah.
am I going to live my life and include things in it that are purposeful? I think once you can start thinking like that, it changes your whole schedule. So for me, on my schedule, I put everything on my schedule
Yeah.
with my wife, with family, friends, whatever. Because if if I could put a meeting on there, then my time with my wife is just as valuable. So it goes on there. So I get to focus on this is how I'm spending my life, and is
Mhm.
it fulfilling in doing that? So I think that's the first part. You got to get a grapple on your schedule.
Mm.
I think oftentimes we allow too many people to dictate what our schedule is going to be. You must be at this meeting. You must be, and they're like, Paul, time out for a second. Do I
Right.
really need to be in a 3-hour meeting?
Right. Or a meeting
You
to
know,
have a meeting.
right? A meeting to have a meeting. Then after the meeting, talk about the meeting. No, stop. That's madness. And at some point, you have to stop. Particularly if you're sitting in the right seat and you can stop the madness.
Right.
Stop the madness and start enjoying pieces of life. Part of it is finding out what's your optimal time. When are you at your best? Whenever you're at your best, plan for that. So if I have a very, very important meeting, if I can affect it all, it's not going to be 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Right.
It's going to be at 10 a.m. Okay, because I know 10 a.m. I'm sharp. I can hit it. Everything is rolling. By 4 o'clock, I'm the same dude, but some days it's like, whoa, let's cut to the chase. And so when is your optimal time to be your most efficient? Okay, and focus on what that is, and then start wrapping things around that, and don't double book yourself,
Mm.
because sometimes that's a mentality piece of we're so important I can double book. No, let me stop double booking, because sometimes half of them aren't that important, and maybe I'm not that important.
Yeah.
And then really focus on what becomes important that I need to accomplish that nobody else can. That's the other piece of this. I
Mm.
think sometimes you have to figure out what am I supposed to be doing that nobody else is called to do, required to do, or can do. I need to do that.
Mm.
And then delegate out other stuff or just push it off your plate. I was
Yes.
talking to a group last week, and we were talking about, during this holiday season, how to balance everything. And I was watching an old rerun of Ed Sullivan, and the guy's on it twirling plates.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm like, that's wonderful. And then he has to keep twirling. Well, you can't stop. And so
Right.
what happens? Some plates will drop. Our life is the same way. We're twirling these plates. And you have to figure out, this is not my plate. I'm going to give it to you, back to you. I'm going to give it back to you. And then I have to be okay with the sound of falling plates, because
Mm.
it's no longer my responsibility.
Yeah.
But I have my responsibility. I'm gonna keep those swirling because I have the capacity to keep these and not those. And when they fall, I want to grab them, but not at the expense of what I'm called to twirl.
Mm.
And so I think we have to get a balance of what that is. And sometimes it's shaving off some opportunities.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's shaving off some people in your life, so that you can find time for self to sit back and read, to have quiet time, to take a walk in the park, walk with your dog, walk with your spouse, your significant other, your friend, whatever it is. Make time for that. That's a priority,
Yes.
and everything else secondary. And I think you flip this thing on its head.
Beautiful. Yeah, and one of the first things I remember doing was putting time in my calendar, making an appointment with myself
Mhm.
so that other people could not book a meeting with me. I wouldn't book a call. And that was the first step to treating my own time as important as I treated somebody else's time.
Yeah.
And it also helped me with that no that we were talking about
Right.
live.
Yeah.
No is a complete
I
sentence.
love that. No is a complete sentence. Yeah.
So often we feel like we have to justify and give
Yeah.
reason, and it's not necessary, right?
No.
It's about identifying the priorities and then
Yeah.
I think inviting yourself to play a little, right? Life is
Without a doubt.
we're meant to have laughter and joy, and we're not here to just work ourselves to death for the man, so to speak, and
Right.
then die. We are meant to have experiences, as you said, live life well with people.
Life is what you allow in. I allow in stress and conflict. I also allow in joy and fun and fellowship. So I have to
Mhm.
allow that in. That means I need a little bit of peace. Turn the volume down a little bit so I can let some of this in.
Right.
So,
And turning down the volume, that's how we can uncover some of these gifts, because if
right.
we're running a million miles an hour and we're chasing after things, we've got blinders on, we miss those opportunities to have a taste of something
Yeah.
new, and just that experience.
Mhm.
Not everybody knows what their calling is when they're 18 years old. I mean, the fact that we even have this narrative of, oh, you're 18, you have to pick what you're gonna do forever and ever and
Yeah,
ever.
yeah,
It's like that's not how it works, right? And as we grow and evolve, that dream can grow and evolve as well.
right. And we're supposed to evolve. That's the purpose of life. And
Mm,
you go and evolve and you haven't met the mark. I met this mark. What's next? This mark. What's next? There's always a next.
yes.
So don't get stuck. Even if you feel stuck right now, don't get stuck. Don't take a stuck mentality. I tell
Mhm,
people when I travel, and I've traveled all around this globe. And so when I go to a hotel, I don't empty my bags out into the drawers, no matter how long I'm staying. I've got friends that do. I'm like, why are you doing that? Because I know I'm not staying here. This is temporary. My
mm,
stuff's in my bag. Okay. And so because I don't want a permanent mentality in a temporary space.
yeah.
And so I think sometimes we get stuck in like, no, get out of that rut. I know it's a rough time right now, but if you're not careful, you stay in a rut.
Yes.
And ruts get to be comfortable and
Mm,
convenient. And then the rut is here, changes up here. And if you stay in it, they keep getting farther and farther apart. And then you say, I can't do that, but you got to.
yes. And as to your point earlier about sometimes we need to shave people off as well as the tasks,
Yeah.
if we are surrounded by people who are too comfortable in that rut, or
Right.
who are not willing to put in any effort for change,
Yeah.
that will also affect your mindset, and you'll think it's normal. Oh
Yep.
yeah, this is I'm going to go and have happy hour and complain and moan and go
Yep.
home and rinse and repeat, and it doesn't have to be that way. But again, it's about making that choice. Non-action is still a choice.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. I mean, you have to focus on I'm going to get better every single day. What is that thing?
Mm,
If it's I'm going to read, then get to reading. If it's workout, if it's I'm going to repair this relationship, well, then that takes time. You have to be
mhm.
intentional about it. Everything is intentionality. You have to be
Yes.
intentional about it happening, or it won't happen. It's
Yeah.
not by happenstance
No.
that things work. You got to work at them, and because if you don't work at them, you can't replicate them. So it's
Right.
not, I mean, you can have a nice time once. How do I replicate that? How do I replicate that again? How do I do that again? Because failure is the same way. I
Hmm.
think in life, we're good at what the failures are.
Yeah.
But what if you get into a mode of perpetual success? Can you stand success after success after success? That means I'm learning what I do well and what I don't do well. I'm
Mm,
learning what I need to focus on and tune out. And
yeah.
I do more of that, I get more successes. When I stray away from that, these little anomalies start to pop up. And
Yeah.
we're like, what happened? I only changed a little bit. That little bit is a lot.
Yeah. One degree shift in your trajectory over
Over
time
time.
is astronomical, right? Being a pilot, you understand, right? If your heading is off 1 degree,
Yeah.
you will not be landing in your destination, right? For five
Ever.
minutes, all right, fine. You can course correct pretty easily, but over
Yeah.
5 hours, if you didn't catch that, you will be far off the mark.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't take a lot. A lot of people think that it requires monumental effort and huge, this is my New Year's resolutions never work, right? Because they're too big. It's too
Yeah.
much of that we've bit off. And then now we're choking on it. And then we go, oh, that doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that again. And sometimes it won't feel good, right? I mean, going to the gym, sometimes it's like hard to get one more rep in or to
Mhm.
like push myself to run faster. But I know on the other end of that I'm going to have that euphoric feeling, or I get to celebrate the fact that now I ran faster or I lifted a heavier weight. And what you pointed out there is the celebration of the wins is so important,
Mhm.
right? In your experience, I mean, I know I see the sports
Yeah.
things in the background as well, right? Like celebration is a big part of perpetuating that success.
Mhm. Yeah, you want to celebrate it. You don't want to live in it, but you
Right.
want to celebrate it and understand that most of the time it wasn't just you. There's a community to help you get there. And what is that? How do you compliment everybody in the process? How do you recognize I'm not so special that I could do it all by myself? That there are other people in this. And I think that's where you've got to really focus on, because if not, you think me.
Right.
And nobody wants to hear that. And if that's the case, the next time trouble comes, it's just you.
Right.
But if you bring people around you, I think in order to do that, you have to be confident in self and then recognize that I can't be jealous of anybody. That way I can bring great people around me and let's get it done. We don't always have to agree on everything, but can we agree on this? Let's move this forward. And so if you do that, we complement rather than contradict each other.
Mm.
And we get to do things together, and everybody can meet their peak and their fulfillment in the journey together. You have to also be okay with, I'm leading this one, but now I'm supporting over here on this one.
Right.
You've got to be able to do both of these things in order to make it work with enough people around you. I think for me, that's how you celebrate it. It's a we win. We did this.
Yes.
And I think that's important. That's good for the heart.
Yeah. Again, it's that shift from me to we, right? And
Yeah.
when we acknowledge the fact that we did not get there on our own,
Right.
that also builds the bond that you have with those people. There's a very famous quote, your network is your net worth.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of truth to that, but not when you only call them because you need something,
Right.
right? It's
Right.
about, cultivating the garden and putting in your own time and effort and energy into something rather than just, let me cut this pretty flower off because I want it now.
Yeah, that network is interesting. So years ago, I lost my phone, and back then, you get a new phone, they would download all your numbers. And I remember I had like 800 numbers, and I'm like, must be a popular guy. And I started scrolling through there. I'm like, I don't know who this is. Oh, they owe me money. Oh, they irritate me. And so I started putting little things next to their names: owes me money, drama, trouble, all of this stuff. And so when the phone rings, like, oh, nope, not doing that one. Because, it's like, wait a minute, I've got too many people in this circle, this network that aren't valuable to me, and I'm not valuable to them either.
Yeah.
Let me shave this down and be focused on who do I want to spend time with? How do I spend time with them? What's important? How do I add to their life and them add to mine? How do we do this well?
So what I'm hearing from a lot of your responses is that there's often very simple math equations that we can do. And it's about not only looking at what we need to be doing, what we need to add in, but what we take away.
Yeah.
And speaking of math equations, can you please help tell everybody
This
about the
right here,
Sure.
it's be greater than average.
So
I
good.
saw this about 10, 12, maybe 15 years ago, someplace. I was like, I love it. And then a couple of years ago, I started putting it on sweatshirts and t-shirts and just going out with it. But it's that little bit, just be greater than average. Everybody can be average almost. What is being greater than average? That means trying a little bit harder. That means sacrificing some. That means putting better people around you. That means just doing a little bit more. And so it's almost like if you really want to accomplish something, I say tell people about it. Okay, that puts pressure on you to get it done. And in
Yeah.
social media, you're saying, hey, I'm going to lose 25 pounds by X date. Put it on social media, put it on TikTok and Instagram and Twitter, put it all out there. Now everybody's going to say, how's it going? What are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah.
And sometimes we need that pressure. That's a little bit more. That just that little bit more. I think it's helpful for all of us to say, you know what? I can do average and ride this life out. But maybe I do a little bit better and a little bit better. And over time, I'm like, oh, wow, how did I get here? How did that door open up? How does this experience come? How did I meet them? And so it's just interesting how things like that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Just that little bit over time and having the reflective practice. I think that most of us, I mean, think about businesses, right? We have Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, and then all of a sudden it's a week until Q1 is done, and now everybody's scrambling to look. Did we hit the numbers? Did we do the things that we said we were going to do? It shouldn't be only every 3 months. It should be, daily check in at the end of the day. Did you accomplish what you wanted to do? What worked well? What could be improved? That's it. That's what you have to ask yourself. And then that can be your compass. And then you can course correct a lot easier. As you said before we went live, if you go past the mark, it takes a lot more energy and time to come back to it. And sometimes we need to do that, right? Sometimes maybe we've used a slingshot and it was too much energy, or we were too focused. We couldn't stop. We couldn't slow down. But if we can be intentional, we don't have to necessarily go that path.
Yeah. And two things. One thing I ask myself every day without fail, at the end of the day, where did I win? Where did I lose? What did I learn? Every day I ask myself that question. Where did I win? Where did I lose? What did I learn? Because if I'm not doing any of those, I'm not sure I really lived that day. Because part of it is getting my goals together. That's a win. It's like, wow, I saw this barista at Starbucks who looked down. I should have looked them in the eyes and said, good morning. How are you doing? Have a great day. And maybe I didn't do that. What did I learn? Slow down. Acknowledge the people around me. Maybe I should have held that door rather than talking on my phone. It's that, but I ask myself that every single day because that's my responsibility. And so I want to make sure that on the little things, I'm paying attention to them.
I love that. And the more you put your attention, where your attention goes, energy flows.
Yes.
And so by asking yourself these questions, you also begin to notice them throughout your day, right? Yes, you know that it's going to come in the evening and you're going to go through. Yeah. And so as it's happening, you might all of a sudden be catching yourself going, I'm gonna put my phone away right now. And I'm paying attention to what's in front of me.
Yeah.
And then it becomes part of just how you're showing up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
Amazing. And so, with all of this, this is making life happen, right? This is the intentionality that you spoke of. And when we do that, we can make a positive impact because very often, whether we think of ourselves as leaders or not, we are leading other people.
Yeah.
Right. Whether it's your children, the people in your team, whether or not you're the manager or director, right? When we show up in a certain way and we do something that interrupts the pattern, it gives people permission to also do something new and to explore those things in themselves.
Yeah. You really want to, you said the word explore. I think we should be voracious learners and always exploring, always reading, always trying to learn more with other people. And so I do this thing called, coffee meetings. I have coffee meetings all the time. In my office, I have a hit list. Everybody I want to have coffee with. And so some I know, some I don't know. Some are real stretch, but I know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody that knows that person. And honestly, it's like we sit down and say, tell me your story. And that's how we start. No agenda, no deals, no anything. And so my goal when I first moved to St. Louis was 200 cups of coffee. And so I'm over 1,000 now with people. And I put it on my schedule. It'll say coffee meeting. And if it's blank next to that, I failed. I didn't fill that spot because I know I've met enough people.
Yeah.
And so I try now. So a couple of times a week, I'll have coffee meetings. And some people I know, some of us follow up, some are just brand new that we've met different places.
Yeah.
And people want to know, what's the agenda? There is none.
Right.
And so, because I don't know when we cross again. For me, it's a lot of times like, oh, I met a dude. Hold on, let me tell you. Here, let me connect the two of you. And that's really what it is. I think if we care enough for humanity, we want to meet more people. Wherever you go. When I'm overseas, getting into a taxi overseas, you kind of put your life in your own hands. So I start talking to the drivers. And same thing. Tell me your story. Tell me about your culture. Tell me what's going on in your world right now. And you start talking and you realize we are much closer than society thinks we are.
Yes.
Society wants to divide us at times. I don't care where you are politically or socially or religiously. We're more alike than we are different. And if we can spend time just to hear each other's story, we can get somewhere with this.
Yeah. Stories are how we connect, right?
Yeah.
It's where we find commonality. It's where we
Yeah.
gain new perspective.
Yeah.
And, ultimately that's how we learn
Yeah.
and that's how we grow. Very often, we're in the middle of something and we're experiencing it and it feels so hard. And then we just take one step to the side and all of a sudden we go, oh, actually,
Yeah.
it's not that difficult. It's not what I
Right.
was thinking.
Yeah.
So I love that. Tell me your story. What a great way, and I often do that. That's why I love having this podcast, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
learn people's stories and share that with everybody. And we've got some great comments from people watching us live right now as well. But really being intentional about that
Yeah.
and seeking it, right? And the fact that you gamified it for yourself as well, right? It's in your calendar, you
Yeah.
have metrics and the stretch. I think that's really important because sometimes we go, oh, they won't want to talk to me, right? They won't want to be
Yeah.
on my podcast or spend 20 minutes with me. And you don't know until you ask.
The worst they can do is say no.
Right.
And so, yeah, and it really helped during COVID. They couldn't do anything else. Sure, I'll Zoom with you. Nothing else going on. So
Exactly.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, virtual coffee chats also work if somebody doesn't live in your area, right? And when you simply want to learn about somebody's story, I remember I met someone who we then became great friends, and she became a client of mine later as well, and helped connect me to a bunch of other people who also became really good friends, simply because I noticed on her LinkedIn, her title at her previous role was Chief Resilience Officer.
Oh, I love
And I
that.
thought, wow, I didn't even know that this was a thing, right?
I
And I
want to talk to
asked her
you,
to
right? Yeah.
yeah, and I asked her to share with me, what does that mean? Can you tell me
Yeah.
more about it? And
Yeah.
20-minute coffee chat turned into a 2-hour lunch, turned into, seeing each other across the globe when we can. So,
When you don't
it's
have an agenda, you get to be transparent and real with people.
yeah,
That creates conversation because this is not conversation. This is conversation. And it's art that unfortunately a lot of people don't possess right now.
right.
They like contentious stuff rather than sitting down and having a conversation. But I think people are starving for that interaction of conversation.
Mm, yes, absolutely. And by saying, "Tell me your story first," the other person sometimes might unload a little bit, and that's
Yeah.
okay. But
Yeah.
that's often what we are needing, right? We just want to be seen and heard and feel connected.
Yeah.
And so the more we can do that, that can be that positive impact we have on
Definitely.
humanity.
Yeah. 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 Definitely.
And I know you've had an amazing impact on humanity with the many things that you've been doing, but specifically the Red Tail Cadet Program.
Yeah.
Can you tell me and the audience a little bit more, what inspired you to start this? What is it? And
Okay.
how can people get more involved if they'd like to support or,
Yeah.
look at joining
Yeah.
themselves?
So about 5 years ago, I was in Africa, going from Rwanda, and so into Tanzania, and we're on this little plane, and there are two pilots, 10 seats, and a friend of mine sitting next to me is a pilot, and I'm like, do they know what they're doing? Because they can hear me talking about them, because they look so young.
Right.
And then we're in Africa, and there's two young Black pilots in Africa, and so we land in Tanzania on this dirt strip in the middle of nowhere Africa, and I was like, okay, and guy got out. I said, hey, let me ask you a question, man. I said, first of all, you look like you're 12 years old, but how'd you learn how to fly? He said he grew up outside in Nairobi, Kenya, in a small village. And every Kenyan father wants his son to be a doctor, a lawyer, or accountant. He said, I don't want to do that. I want to fly planes. And they told him, we don't understand what that is. And they told him after high school, go to South Africa and go figure it out. So from Kenya to South Africa is not a bus ride. Okay. And
Right.
so he said it was the hardest thing he ever had to do. of changing countries on his continent
Mm,
to go figure it out. So I got back on that plane and I said, if he can learn how to fly in Africa, I could teach kids in Ferguson how to fly.
mm,
And so, Ferguson has this connotation across our country, what happened here almost 10 years ago. And so, back up a little bit. The first time I came to Africa was right after everything happened with Mike Brown and everything in Ferguson. And we're sitting in a room in Zimbabwe, and we have all these dignitaries, these government officials, and they said, "Where are you from?" I said, "United States." They were like, "We know that. Where?" And I said, "Well, Missouri, St. Louis." And one guy said, "Ferguson?" I said, "You've got to be kidding me." So across the globe, they had this image. I said, "We have to change the image." So when and that day on that plane, I realized I want to teach kids in Ferguson who are in the shadow of an airport, but
mm.
may not have all the opportunities that other kids have. I want to teach them to fly. And so I started jotting out on the plane ride, Red Tail Cadet Program, kind of in the heritage of Tuskegee Airmen. And
Mm.
I said, and so I got back and talked to a friend of mine who's a pilot. I said, "How hard is it to fly?" Because first of all, I'm not a pilot. I believe in the impossible. And so he said, "It's doable, but it's hard." We got back to St. Louis, and right across from my office is a private airport, and there's a flight school there. And I met with them, and I said, "How hard is this?" And we got on a whiteboard, and we mapped this thing out in about 3 hours. And we created that program that day on that board, and we said it's doable. And
Wow.
so we recognized that they had to be very bright students. They're going to have these. So these are high school students from the Ferguson, Florissant School District, 10th, 11th, 12th graders, or rising 12th graders. They have a 3.5 GPA. They're in STEM programs, and it's a very, very competitive to get in because we only take 6.
Okay.
And so it's very competitive to get in, and it's a rigorous program. They're not in a flight light program. They're in a flight program. This is not simulators because it's a residential program. So they come in on a Sunday night. Sunday night, we'll have mentors with them. So they've had millionaires, billionaires, Blue Angels with them, other pilots just hanging out with them,
Yeah.
talking about all type of stuff on Sunday night. On Monday morning, they're up. We leave the hotel. They go out to the airfield. They're there every day. They fly every single day. And on Thursday at 5 o'clock, parents pick them up, and we do that for 6 weeks.
Wow.
And so it's very intensive. So we just graduated our 3rd class this past summer. We're
Wonderful.
starting to get applications for our next class, which is next summer. And so what we found is that these students that we introduced aviation to, first of all, I want them to be better citizens, be better human beings, to be well-read, well-spoken, and understand their responsibility to be a good citizen and ambassador, not only for this community and their schools, but for this nation, because they are a good story. That's number one. And number two, they're needed in aviation. And
Yes.
so how do we get you into aviation? How do we get you into this into spaces that sometimes you don't see ways forward?
Right.
So, and many of them have never seen that way forward, living in very impoverished areas and have never taken a flight before, had never thought about this is an opportunity for me. And so when I look at our graduates from our earlier classes, one's a Marine in aviation, one's in the Navy right now at aviation. We got one in air traffic control school, another one in a flight school working on his bachelor's degree. I mean, so they're doing it in a space where they never thought this was an opportunity. And so for me, just being able to pour into them and find space for them to live out life, because they are the story. I'm not the story. Everybody wants to interview me about it. They are the story.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, we've got a lot of sponsors. Boeing is one of our sponsors. I never forget, but our first class was sitting around this table with this, at that point in time, this top secret aircraft they were working on, but it's a T-7, which is the Red Hawk. Now it's public. And they had us sitting around the table. I said, "No, let the kids sit around the table." And we took a back seat and let them sit up there with all the executives. And they told the story and they sold it, because it's really about them. It's not about me. For me, down the road, this will be part of my legacy, but it's not about me. It takes so many people to make this happen
Yes.
that I want these kids to recognize they have a responsibility in this community to mentor somebody else. It's almost like, so the first day of school every year, they're in their jumpsuits at elementary schools, high-fiving kids coming in, 2nd and 3rd grade, because their posters are all in the schools in their jumpsuits with planes behind them. Kids say, "I want to be like you."
Yeah.
And so they have a responsibility in that. So that is the Red Tail Cadet Program, or redtailcadetprogram.com. You can look on there, ask me any questions you want about it. I tell people, say, how can I help? I tell people, reality, money is a thing, but money doesn't hold us back on this. It's going to happen. I tell people, tell the story. Help us tell the story. There's a lot of video there. There's information there. You need anything, I'll send it to you. Tell the story to your constituents, your partners, your downline employees, your sponsors, your customers. Tell a good story. Okay. And if you're ever in the St. Louis area during the summer and you want to come hang out with them, come hang out with them. They love being around individuals, and it's amazing because, like I said, so last year the Blue Angels were in town and we're at dinner, and the only people the Blue Angels wanted to talk to was them. And so they had people waiting in line for autographs and stuff, and they're talking to our kids.
Yeah.
And so the Blue Angels will be back again this summer. And so it'll be the same thing again. There's a partnership there where they really get to recognize I can do that.
Yeah.
And what's amazing is you got this Blue Angel pilot talking to this 16-year-old about flight. And you just watch that, and it's, to me, it's just amazing. You're talking about the pinnacle of flight, and you're talking about a kid who just turned 16. And here's the funny part: we had two kids this summer who did their solos on the same day they got their driver's license.
So
awesome. I asked one of them, I said, how'd you do on your test? He said, I got a 70. You got a 70 on driver's test? Yep, I just barely passed. I said, you got a solo today. You have to do more than just barely pass. Okay?
Yes.
That's a zero-sum game. You got to do it right.
Yeah, exactly. The stakes are a little bit different.
A little bit higher. But it's amazing what kids can do if you take off restrictions. They don't know what they don't know. So we don't tell them this is a hindrance or this is a problem. And, you have adults that struggle with this. They're not struggling with it because they don't know it's that hard.
Right.
They just do it, and they recognize it's competitive, but they're one team. And if somebody doesn't know, your job is to make sure they know, to be accountable, so that is the Red Tail Cadet Program.
Well, maybe we can get some of the Red Tail Cadets here on the podcast.
I've got a couple in mind that would be amazing, because one, they have amazing stories of how they got to be where they are right now, and who've been great representatives of the program and talking about it and really being about it. It's that honor, it's that integrity, it's that recognizing it's not about me.
Yes. And it's that mentorship, right? It's about giving back. And so often, I run the mentorship committee with the South Texas Business Aviation Association. And in the beginning, a lot of people are thinking, well, who can mentor me? But you also have something to offer. Everybody has a gift. Everyone has experience. And so who can you turn around and mentor and give advice to and help, show what the opportunity is? Just hold that door open a little bit for, and in doing that, that will lead to the opportunities. And, as we build that as a culture, then that we becomes a lot more common, right?
Yeah.
And so I love what you're doing with the program. The fact that they get to talk to all these individuals is also building their confidence. My ability to speak in public is certainly because of Civil Air Patrol. And I had those same opportunities where these, awe-inspiring adults were coming and speaking to us, and I got to speak to them like a human, an adult, and they spoke to me not like a child, but someone who was, studying aviation and passionate. And so that allowed me to step up to that, right?
Yeah.
So that's amazing. But
cool.
yes, let's get the kids on here. That would be
definitely
awesome.
I can make that happen for you.
Amazing. All right. So Anthony, I think I have a pretty good idea of what some of your superpowers might be, but what would you say your superpower is?
Helping people shine their light. That brings me joy. And so whether it be, I do a lot of executive coaching or whatever, it's how do you find that fulfillment point? And then let's live that thing out. Unashamed. Let's focus on and live it out every single day. There are no days off living your life.
Yes.
And at the end of it, you want to be finished. I don't leave anything else out there. I want to do it all. And I want to do it all with people I love and care for. I want to do it around people where I have fun and laugh and have experiences in life. And you sit back and say, remember we did A, B, or C? And you laugh about it. You're like, yeah, that was good. It's where did we go? What did we do? what did we see, not what did I see,
Yeah.
not what did I do. I don't need the plaques on the wall. The plaques I have are walking, living human beings.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's powerful. And I love the living your truth every single day unashamed, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because for some reason, due to cultural narrative, the upbringing, all of these things, we tend to carry a lot of shame for the things that we desire or feel that we are good at contributing because we were told at some point that it was dumb or silly or not worthwhile. And so it's really unraveling a lot of that in order to be able to step back into that light, right? Instead of
Just
hiding in the
right.
shadows.
Just be your authentic self. Took me a long time to like who I am. I'm not changed for anybody. If you don't like it, that's your loss, not mine. And I'm going to enjoy life every day. And it doesn't mean you're on bumps in the road and things will happen. But at the end of the day, I'm going to try my very best to live my fulfilled life every day. And that's a mentality. That's an intentional mentality because it's not easy.
No, it's not.
It's not easy. So
But it is definitely something
yeah.
worth practicing and
Yes.
getting better at.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And who would you say is on your personal board of directors? Those people in your life
My
that you
wife.
or don't know.
My wife is one.
Yeah.
We've been married 30, it'll be 30, it'll be 31, 32 years. I got it right. 32 years. But we've
Congratulations.
known each other since like age 17. And so that would be one. I've got some good mentors around that I get to throw ideas off of, and some good friends. I get to be natural with, and vent with, and talk to, and will not just friends tell me what I want to hear, will give me truth.
Yes.
And we have good conversations, and I listen. I've grown to be a great listener. So you want to be around people where you can talk and listen to. And so that becomes my board, and I cherish that. I cherish those relationships so that I'm not doing this alone. So even if I can do it alone, I don't want to do it alone.
Yes.
It's easy to say, I'll just do it. No, come on, let's do this together.
Yes.
It's more fun that way.
Yes, and you can let it be fun, right? It doesn't
Right.
have to be so serious all the time.
If you do it with the right people, even if it's a failure, it's funny.
Yes.
So, I've been with some friends sometimes and run out of gas, and we've had a good time.
Yeah.
Try not to do that anymore, but we've done that. Another time we ran out of gas, and what happened next? Yeah.
Right. And you know what? Again, adversity maybe in the moment is not the thing you want, but later you have a great story. You have the growth moment, right? You learn something. And then you get to share that with other people. And that is, again, the connection point. So
yeah, definitely.
that's amazing.
Definitely.
And how would you say you best represent or serve humanity?
I believe in humanity. I believe in the best of people, even in conflict. When I was in Rwanda a few years ago, it was 25 years past genocide. And if you know anything about that, over about 100 days, almost 1 million people were killed. And I'm in a room with Tutsis and Hutus who grew up there, who were 10 years old when it happened. So they're 35. So they remember all of it. They were there. They watched their parents kill each other. So it's vivid in their mind, but they're getting along. And what is that? Because that's the ultimate conflict right there, who are still neighbors. And so I believe in humanity. I believe in the redemption of people. And you can mess up and still have a second or third or whatever chance. That even people who've done foul things in life, sometimes, even in the space they're in, they're still part of humanity. I've done prison ministry in some of the worst places in this country, been on death row. Doesn't negate what they've done. Right. But I've had some great conversations with people who are part of our human existence, and we've had great conversations. They're never getting out, but that was a good human being I talked to. And so if we look at people that way, we become less judgmental, less harsh. And I think that's better for humanity because we need more of that. We have to show that as an example to others.
Yes. Powerful. I have goosebumps. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, this was great. I mean, my face hurts from smiling so much. I've taken 2 pages of notes myself, trying not to look away from the camera. This has been absolutely wonderful, Anthony. Thank you so much. If people would like to reach out to you to learn more, to connect and tell you their story, what is the best way for them to do that?
AnthonyMyers.com. That's my website. Go there and we'll work it from there. And I'll make sure that you'll get some cadets soon to talk to. I'll make sure that happens. And you said something earlier about you writing poetry. You're
Mhm.
back to it.
Yes.
Keep writing,
Thank
because poetry is something that's inside. And if it's for no one else but for you, you got to get it out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, that's my plan.
Yeah.
I held it down for too long, and, now I'm letting it come out, and it's
Yeah.
been a great experience, and having that release and also
Yeah.
that expression, you know?
Yeah.
So
That's
thank you
cool.
very much. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, amazing. All right. Well, thank you, Anthony. And thank you for everyone who joined us live. Again, if you have any questions or comments for myself or Anthony, please go ahead and put them in the comments on whatever platform you're watching this from. And we will be back next week with another episode of The Lounge. Thank you and have a good night.